Hello, and welcome to lesson 24 of Financial Sobriety School. In this lesson, we're talking about a tough subject. And even actually, the thought of talking about this makes me super anxious. So, if you're watching this on YouTube, you might see me moving around a little bit. Because this is part of my story. And it's a big part of my story. And I actually think it's a really big part of my story that people need to hear so you understand that you're not alone. Part of my work and what I really, really honor about my work is that I want to make sure people understand they aren't alone with their struggles with money and that we can talk about it and starting to remove that judgment from shame, because this topic brings a lot of that. I'm talking about financial infidelity. What does that even mean? And I just want to take a second to really let those words sink in. Financial infidelity. What does that sound like for you? What does that mean for you? And it is a tough subject, as I said, but I think it's something that happens all the time. Unfortunately, it is, when I just looked at some statistics before I started recording, I saw that in a lot of studies, it was the third highest reason people end their marriages or end their relationships. And the first ones being incompatibility and then infidelity with other partners. So of course, when you hear the word infidelity, you probably think like, oh, like cheating on each other or one's cheating on the other, and just talking about stepping outside of the marriage in another relationship. Well, what financial infidelity is stepping outside of the relationship with your money and probably having hidden debt, probably having maybe hidden accounts, hidden credit cards that your spouse might not know about. And this doesn't necessarily have to mean that this is something that happens in a marriage. It could be in a partnership in general. And to be honest with you, I think that we can actually commit financial infidelity with ourselves. We can lie to ourselves so much. I know that's part of my story when it comes to my money. Like, I was an ostrich with my head in the sand, and I was lying to myself a lot. And I just really want, you're probably wanting to stop this lesson right now. Like, no, Linda, don't need to learn about this. No, thank you. And I totally get it. But I think it's also something really important to talk about, because I hear this all the time. I have this credit card that my husband doesn't know about. I have this credit card my partner doesn't know about, and I have no idea how I'm going to pay it off. Like, and the balance is just growing and growing and growing. And the shame spiral starts. And all of the different feelings that we have just are overtaking us, the anxiety, the anger, the resentments, possibly even mostly about ourselves. So when it comes to financial infidelity, what my story is I was a financial advisor for over 20 years. And since I was a financial advisor, like when my husband, I hadn't quite reached the goal in my career of being a financial advisor when I met my husband, but I was working in the bank when I met him. And so people who work in banks, you should trust those people. And I'm laughing at myself, and mostly like maybe my nervous laugh is coming out because that happens. Because again, this is coming with a lot of weight. I can feel the weight of this, and my stomach feels kind of icky, and I feel really vulnerable. And I think it's something that is important for me to feel. I don't want to pretend that this is okay, because it wasn't. And so working in a bank, oh, she works in a bank. Like, and then we started, we didn't really have our money together until after we got married. We'd been together for 5 years before we got married. And from there, you know, bought our home. And it wasn't until I would say probably like 5 years into our marriage that I, started to really ramp up the spending. And this was a lot of times before I even quit drinking. A big piece of my story is that my spending got worse when I got sober from alcohol. But to be honest, I was spending a lot of money anyways, just on alcohol. And so a lot of that was going on debt. So the journey really started kind of when we got married. And I would just get him to come into the bank and sign documents. And there's actually a couple podcast episodes that I had recorded with him within the last 3 or 4 years. So there's a couple episodes. If you go to the blog about this, and actually I'll just put it in the show notes for YouTube, and if you listen to it on a podcast as well, to the other 2 episodes of us recording episodes together and talking about our journey with money. And we go into detail of how I would just get him to sign paperwork that he actually had no idea what he was signing, nor would I explain it to him, because he trusted me. And I took advantage of that trust. And I just did what I needed to do because my debt and my credit cards were just out of control. So I was always refinancing our home to pay off the credit cards. And all he cared about at that time was like, I believe that I would share with him like, oh, we're going to be paying off our credit cards. But at the end of all of it, like it was just like, pass the paper over, sign here. Okay. I'd bring stuff home and he would have no idea what he was signing and he wouldn't ask. So then there's also that part of financial infidelity that happens where, your partner that you have a relationship with money with, they should be asking questions as well. And I'm putting absolutely no blame on him for that because he trusted me. But there also is 2 people in a relationship, and we now know that we're both like responsible for our money. And it was secret spending that led up to it. I didn't have hidden like credit cards, like the credit cards were always in both of our names, but he would have no clue how to log in online to be able to even check to see what balances were. So like I was off to the races. I was able to do all the things and he didn't know anything about it. And occasionally, like when he would ask about like a balance or like how much do we owe on our mortgage or how much do we owe on the line of credit, because most of the time I would just refinance it to put the balance of the credit card onto our line of credit. And then when I told him what the balance was, there'd be, I wouldn't say a fight, but it would be like an argument and it would be a lot of tension and he wouldn't really understand it. But honestly, like that went away so quickly. And so it just kept me going. And it was one of those things that I just kept going and I kept getting away with it. And it wasn't until that there was no way that I had any room left in refinancing anything. I had maxed out all the credit cards and I was a financial advisor, again, giving advice to people. And the shame about that is really, really huge as well. And so there's a lot of layers to this. And what I think is really, really important is that when I meet with people, this is extremely common. It is extremely common because we don't talk about money. In the last lesson for financial sobriety school, we talked about like what we were taught about money when we were kids and what that did and didn't look like. And so when you come into a marriage, like most people aren't talking about money. And it's really important that when you enter a relationship and you start to commingle with money, that you have conversations. Do you have any debt? Start to understand each other's spending habits. And it can be hard, But, sometimes that's where someone like a money coach like myself can come in. Or maybe if you get an amazing advisor that really can help walk you through it. The hard part for me when I was a financial advisor is my job was selling. My job was, I was a salesperson. I wasn't just, giving you advice. I was selling products. And the banks were so driven on, you got to get, I don't even remember, because like if I if I try to think about like what was actually happening, I definitely still like the stress of it again, even just from working in the bank. And you got to get insurance, you got to get, people should have at least 3 credit cards, and it was just push, push, push. I didn't have time in my role as a financial advisor to actually give people advice. I could tell you like, oh, this is the best fund to put your money into for, go through investment profiles and stuff. But I didn't have the capacity to actually like teach people about money. And people would come into my office so scared because they didn't want to talk about money. So let alone bring a couple together. And it's like, okay, like how do we talk about money? And we have 2 money stories coming together and colliding sometimes. So sometimes there might need to be some professional people that come in and help support you with that. So know that that's something that I do as well, is couples coaching. I actually love doing couples coaching because it is something that I have lived experience with. And so kind of what we were talking about is, financial infidelity being like the secret accounts, hidden transactions, hiding shopping bags. Hello, that was me, always hiding the shopping bags, hiding things in the trunk of my car. Oh, is that new? No, I've had this for years. And I actually still do that. And it will actually be things that I bought a few years ago, because I don't purchase clothes like I used to. But like Sunny will say something like, oh, that looks really good on you. I really like that. Oh yeah, I got that a couple years ago. Yeah, I got that a couple years ago and I got it on sale. And I try to just like spew off these excuses. And he's like, you don't have to explain it to me. It's all good. But like even talking about that, I can hear a lot of people like trying to justify purchases, right? Or justify, oh, well, I got a really good deal on it. Or, oh, like, no, this isn't new. Like, oh, no, I've had these shoes forever. And, oh, and the list just goes on and on and on. But the shame of that also goes on and on and on. So the good news is that when it comes to financial infidelity, you can work through it. It isn't super easy, and I am so grateful for my husband and how open he was to my financial sobriety and the process I did have to work through it. I didn't really come completely clean with him until I actually had my own money coaching. And this is actually something that I see in a lot of my clients as well. Like I'm going to tell my spouse or my partner, but I actually want to kind of understand it. I want to have a plan, and I want to really be active in cleaning my mess up before I bring them on board. And that is completely understandable. Do I think that you should never bring your spouse on board? No, I think that one of the things that we should do, and that's part of working your financial sobriety, is being open and being honest. It's so, so important for you and your money, because the stress of it, the anxiety, the shame, the guilt, it keeps you up at night. It keeps you unhealthy. And so there is a time and a place for it. And a lot of times, really being able to say like, hey, I need to talk to you about money. And, I really need to tell you something that feels really hard for me. And I have a credit card with a $12,000 balance on it. I actually have been meeting with a money coach, or I have worked out online how to make a debt repayment plan, and I've started already to pay it off. But since we're a team, I really thought you should know. And I feel a lot of shame about this and a lot of regret. And I want to talk about it. And I know I make that sound easy as it flows out, and I know that it's not. And so just bringing in some dialogue about it, right? Because it is possible. Things that can help start to heal the financial infidelity is having open dialogue, right? Being honest, being really, kind of that sober feeling of being able to tell your partner, your spouse, or whoever you're mingling with money with, like what's really going on, and having that communication, open communication, building boundaries together, making financial goals together, and having money meetings that are really, really about okay, this is what our goal is. Where are we with this goal? Building a spending plan together so you're both on the same page about, where your money's going to go. And even about like financial infidelity can sometimes mean like somebody lying about their income, and they have separate bank accounts from their partner. And from there, like they're still, they're spending more money because they're making more income than they're telling their partner. And financial infidelity happens when you have separate accounts too, right? And some people like to really split their accounts and keep them separate. But I also believe that having conversations about money is still important. You may not want to like tell your partner, spouse, whatever, that what exactly is going on. And that might be a reason why you have separate accounts. But having financial goals, boundaries, and expectations about money when you're in a partnership is really important, because good old shame and resentment, they come flying back at you. So really, what boundaries would feel good with money, and taking some time. This financial sobriety overall is a journey. You're not going to say just one day like, oh, yes, got that financial sobriety thing. I listened to one of Linda's episodes and I got this down. Heck no. I'm still working my financial sobriety, and I'll be working on it for the rest of my life. I'm still working on my recovery and sobriety from alcohol and drugs, and I'll be working on that for the rest of my life. Does it get easier? Absolutely, it does. Is there still hard times? Absolutely there is. And I wish that I had like a little pink cloud that we could all float on, but unfortunately we don't. But that's why I'm here, right? That pink cloud, since there isn't one, it doesn't need to mean that money is a horrible thing that's happening in your life. Bringing it in piece by piece, action by action, one foot in front of the other, and working on the next right thing is overall what financial sobriety is. And it's also something that will help support and help heal financial infidelity. If you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out, and I'm always here to talk about it. I'm so, so grateful. If you've made it to the end of this episode without turning me off, heck yeah, give yourself a high five. Just do a little happy dance, because this was a hard one. This was a hard topic. And so what are you going to do to look after yourself after you've listened to this lesson? Because that's also something I know for sure with money, is being able to look after ourselves in certain ways is really, really important. So go celebrate and acknowledge yourself for listening to this lesson, and reach out if you need support. I'm proud of you. You are worthy of financial sobriety. Thanks so much for listening to the lesson. I will talk to you in a couple weeks. Bye.